Hello, everyone. Dr. Nick Verma here with another edition of Things I Didn't Learn in Med School. Today, I want to talk about the growing distrust in the medical health professionals and the medical advice that physicians are giving to patients. There was a recent article that came out that was geared towards Gen Zs, but I think it can expand to millennials and other generations as well. This study showed that since the pandemic, individuals are more reliant on social media health influencers like the Gary Breckas and who have you, in favor of what physicians are telling them. Um, these young adults have kind of made an ecosystem, as they stated in the article, of where people are looking for information. Some of the interesting takeaways that was found was 45% of adults aged 18 to 34 have disregarded their provider's guidance in favor of information from a friend or family member in the past year. This is something that I've seen on Facebook recently, where an individual is dealing with back pains and sciatica, a radicular pain going down their leg, and I was tagged in it because I had helped a patient out, and um, it sparked my curiosity. So I was following this Facebook link for a while, and I was just seeing so much bad advice of what to do. People were saying I was taking X amount of ibuprofen. I was using a heating pad for extensive hours of the day. Um, and there was other things that were good advice. Try acupuncture, try massage therapy, try chiropractor, try physical therapy. So I don't want to, cornerstone this example as all bad. There was some good advice, but there was also bad advice. When some of that advice is actually the advice that I would give, but I think going to an expert in a field of something like back pain and radiculopathy and sciatica is going to carry its weight more than just what your neighbor had done for them, which might have worked for them or might have not worked for them. And I think it's important that we start throwing out the information that's not beneficial and start gaining some trust back in our medical professionals. The study went on to tell us that 38% of young adults have ignored what their providers say in favor of social media. Again, this is rampant of the social media influencer age that we live in, where individuals are ignoring their physicians in favor of what they see on social media. And I think a lot of it has to do with these social media influencers just bashing on the medical profession, calling us, pill pushers, calling medical professionals paid by pharmaceutical companies. And one counter argument I always want to say to people that say, oh, you're paid by the pharmaceutical company. I get paid the exact same for a patient visit if I prescribe a medication or not. And I'm in a practice where I don't like to prescribe a lot of medications because I want people to get back physically active. I don't want them relying on medications. I don't want them to be stuck on medications that are going to possibly damage, you know, their kidneys or their gut lining or increase their risk of cardiovascular disease, like such as non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen, naproxen, meloxicam, what have you. Or medications like gabapentin, which can be great for nerve pain, but can also cause a lot of neurological and thinking issues. Or medications like opioids, which are addictive and can cause decreased immune system and can cause rebound pain and decrease your respiratory drive. So all of these things are important for me at least as an individual. But we have these non-professionals bashing the medical industrial complex. Sorry, more the medical professionals as physicians, like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They just want to do surgery. They just want to prescribe medications. When I'm kind of explaining that that's not really the case, and I think we need to fix that social stigma that individuals have against physicians in that case. Um, Furthermore, I think other things that this study was showing that um, the vast majority of young adults still had their doctor influence their medical decision making, but um, 1/3 of young adults also reported content creators without medical training have influenced their health decisions too. So I think there is, and there are individuals that do listen to their doctors, and I think a lot of times those doctors are the ones that are showing increased compassion and care for individuals. But I think we really need to bridge this gap of this distrust between society and the medical professionals. And I agree, there are bad players out there. Um, there are a lot of doctors that don't care. They do want to just get patients in and out as quick as possible, or they do just want to do surgery. Um, it's not every doctor that's compassionate and kind and caring and listens to their patients. That is a problem of the medical industrial complex, in my opinion, more so than the individual physicians and training. I do think the business model of medicine has really increased the distrust between patients and their physicians. Um, we have less time to spend with our patients. We have less reimbursement for spending less time with those patients. We don't get to get the whole picture, the whole story. We don't always get to get really into the details of what is causing some of the problems for patients. And until we fix that in the medical industrial complex, we're going to continue to have some distrust from the patients to the providers and the physicians. Um, it brings up an interesting point that I was thinking of. I've brought this proverb up before. I've talked about it before, and it can be linked back to a lot of different origins. But the gist of the proverb is this: pay attention to the whispers, so we don't have to listen to the screams. So I added in pay attention to the whispers of pain, so they don't become the screams of agony pain. Right. So there is a patient that I am treating or have been treating, and they have hip osteoarthritis, and they're due for a hip replacement. They've probably needed a hip replacement for the past 7 to 10 years. Despite my best efforts to continue them in physical therapy, different type of steroid injections, offering different nerve blocks, um, they kept putting off this hip replacement. And because their activity levels were down, they weren't getting the cardiovascular exercise that they were necessarily needing. And they end up having aortic stenosis, and it made them a high risk surgical candidate at this time. So they were trying to get cardiac clearance, and they went to the cardiologist, and the cardiologist was like, "Listen, I cannot clear you because you are high risk. We need to do some more studies. You might need an aortic valve replacement." Well, the family at that point got upset, and they were saying, like, "Hey, this isn't fair. We waited, we did everything we were asked. We tried to rush into this appointment to try to get this hip replacement done." Well, I think this is an important factor. Is like, I don't want to push someone to surgery too soon, but I think by ignoring that hip pain when they were younger and not doing the proactive steps to try to fix it and heal it, they put themselves at a disadvantage for their surgery. And Now they have to go through this intensive cardiac workup and potentially have an aortic valve replacement. And they're putting off now their hip surgery, which is limiting their mobility further, which is leading to more cardiovascular compromise, um, and leading to more arthritis pain. So that's something that these health influencers aren't looking at when they say avoid all surgeries, or don't get that injection, or don't get that medication. Um, there are other things in play here. It's not just a one size fits all solution. I think that's one benefit of the age of generation that of technological information and AI and the information that's out there. I think we have such a great value and breadth of information that's out there, but I don't think we necessarily have the depth that we need, and I don't think people are asking the questions to get the depth that we absolutely need. I'll give you another couple of examples of issues that I've dealt with the past few months. A patient who has had 30, 40 years past history of smoking, and they work in a labor intensive job. And unfortunately, they have very, very low muscle mass in their back and their glute muscles. These are all contributing factors to low back pain. Unfortunately, he's in such intense pain that procedures have no longer worked, and he's not very old, in his 50s. Um, and he's looking at a surgery because he didn't take care of his body at the beginning. And he's so frustrated that he's like, why did this happen? How did this happen? Well, I'll tell you, these health influencers, they're not telling you these things at the beginning. Um, when I'm explaining to my patients the importance of going to physical therapy and working with a good therapist and having an exercise regimen and why that's so important, will lead me to my next example of this. Um, I think she's about 40-year-old female, and she's been ignoring her pain for too long, to the point where she hadn't been able to work out anymore. She gained, unfortunately, a lot of weight. She needs both knees replaced, but she's um, too high of a body mass index to get that knee replacement done. Her back is really bothering her. She can't really have back surgery. So we're trying to get everything back in shape, but we're already behind the eight ball in this situation. This is why it's important. I tell patients, I tell people, I tell my friends, hey, if you're having hip pain, you're having back pain, you're having some sort of pain, you need to start dealing with it in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. So you're not having these compromised states of health down the road. And I think that's why that proverb I feel is so important for me to explain to patients. I feel like I need to get it blown up and put it in my office to really push to people and get it up on my website more, because I think it's very important. And listen, I'm guilty of it too. I have a hip that is bothering me. It's tight, especially when I'm golfing. I have a low back issue that is nagging. It doesn't limit me from doing anything I need to do, but I know I need to do the exercises. Um, on the other end of the spectrum, I mean, I know a lot of the physical therapy exercises to do, so I do them. I still do yoga 4 to 7 days a week, um, 15 to 20 minutes in the morning. Um, and that helps stave off a lot of the injury. It could be a lot worse, but it could also get a lot better. And I think I still need to do some dedicated time to work on getting that a lot better in the long run. I want to say this as well. Um, I get it. I know what's going on in the marketing world of these health influencers. I was subdued myself from about midway through college up until somewhere around 2019. I loved the Dave Asprey's, Ben Greenfield, Joe Rogan, all his guests that were controversial thinkers, um, alternative diet people, carnivore diet, keto diet. all these things. I loved it. I was like, this makes so much sense to me. This is how life is. The pharmaceutical companies have all the doctors in their pockets, yada yada yada. And I felt this way through most of my residency as well, where I didn't feel like the medical industrial complex was really helping our patients. But that was until I got towards my end of my residency when I was seeing these patients for what they were, when they're coming to us and society has failed them. There's a lot of onus on themselves as well, where they've missed out on the agency to take care of themselves. But and I do hope and I do wish people do take better care of themselves. Um, but I was seeing a different side of the medical field that I think a lot of these influencers don't see. It's easy for someone to go online and say all these things and peddle supplements and their detox course and their detox diet and their books and their podcasts and their speaking engagements. It's easy to peddle those things when you don't have to deal with the dire circumstances of the other end of the spectrum. The reason why most of these things work is because you're eliminating a lot of processed foods, which that in itself could help a lot of health uh, issues. Um, they start having more agency because they're paying someone a lot of money for them to tell them to have more agency in their life. They are having a new sense of purpose. I think that's a really big thing of, hey, my sense of purpose is to get healthy again. And we see that a lot with patients who've had heart attacks or strokes and they want to be around for their kids. They're like, I am changing my purpose to live a better and healthier life. It's the same reason why a lot of people with really bad addictions can come out of it very easily because they have new purpose and new agency for life. I think you get into a community, which is very important for any change. When you have a community, you can discuss topics and issues and find like-minded individuals, um, which is sometimes really good for your psyche and how you process information and how you can ask questions and how you can start taking care of yourself. Um, I think a lot of these are the reasons why people that join these programs have such good results. But the thing that is never advertised are the people that don't have results or the individuals that got worse because they ignored the medical advice. Um, I remember I had a patient who unfortunately had just a very, very severe MS, multiple sclerosis. And her family was convinced it was due to the cavity fillings that she had. This is a time when I was still in the holistic mindset. So I went to go do some research. I really couldn't find the link of the research that they were talking about. I read the papers they gave me, and it was a very low powered studies. Um, Ultimately, they didn't want medications, and this poor lady, she really, really went south very quickly, and it was a really tough thing for me to see because it was one of those patients, one of my first patients that I dealt with when I was on my intern year. And, I started questioning even my own beliefs on this holistic approach of everything. And it was a start of a journey, but I didn't really get there until 4 or 5 years later of really having to dive down into data and understand what the science actually says. Um, but that's kind of one thing. Like I'm trying to connect with the people that I understand that it's really cool to look at these outside the box thinkers and say, oh my gosh, this person's right. How is it so blatantly obvious in front of my face? Well, it wasn't really obvious. It's marketing. It's conjuring up scare tactics. It's um, fear mongering. It's millions of dollars pumped into the system to tell you that your physician doesn't know what they're talking about. And I think it's about time that we as healthcare providers and physicians and dietitians and psychologists, we start working together to try to correct this imbalance that we have. Um, I'm not saying every doctor knows everything, and I think anybody that does admit that they know everything should be questioned. And I think there's a lot of humility in the field of medicine where we continuously need to learn, go to courses, go to classes, attend seminars, and question our own thinking so we can be better providers for our patients. That's something that I continuously try to do, and I have multiple groups that I can bounce ideas off of and discuss ideas off of. And I think that's one of the big things that we have in our field that other people don't look at. And if they want to talk about the baseline mechanisms or the root cause, and I say that with a tongue in cheek, and I'll say why in a second, but um, they don't have the same open mindedness to explore all ideas. They want to stay in their idea realm because that's how they market and that's how they make money. That's how they get likes. Um, Mind you, all these influencers quite often will do things just for likes and follows, not necessarily because they want to give the best information out there. That's something that I have to work hard on to ask myself, why am I producing this video? Why am I putting this post up? Am I doing it for likes and follows and comments, or am I doing it because I find this information of value, or I think it's going to motivate someone, or it's going to be beneficial for society as a whole? And I want to go back to that root cause comment, because I think quite often people will talk about the root cause as an unhealthy diet or food dyes or microplastics. And I think all of these things are causes of issues, but not one thing is a root cause. Our bodies are highly complex, and there are so many biomedical and uh, biophysiological, biochemical changes that happen in the body at any given minute, any given second that our minds can't even comprehend. And what one medication or hormone or microplastic or food dye does to one person may have absolutely no effect on someone else. So I want to wrap with this, that I think it's important that we start finding more trust in our medical industrial health. Sorry, not in the medical industrial complex, but in our medical health professionals, especially the ones that are trying to do the right thing, not for likes, not for ego, but to get the right message out there. And if you're looking to live a better life, I think it's very challenging, but the steps are pretty clear. Have a healthy diet with low processed food, high in fiber, high in lean meats, low in processed grains and carbohydrates. Get plenty of sleep, 6 to 8 hours, without screens, without the aid of alcohol or edibles. Um, that tends to be the big thing that patients are coming to me now is I take an edible, go to sleep. If you're having sleep issues, you need to go talk to a sleep specialist about that. Having a good purpose in life. Purpose can be different thing for different people. A lot of times that purpose can come in a spiritual form, which tends to be a higher form of purpose. And that purpose of spiritual form can really connect you to yourself and to whatever higher purpose you have. Um, Having a good community. Sometimes that higher purpose of spirituality can come to community as well, because churches and temples and religious organizations have a great sense of community, and they also provide for the community itself, and this can really help bolster good health and staying low in stress. and practicing things like mindful meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, and working on our stress resilience as well. And then finally, getting exercise, I think, is one of the most important things that we should be doing daily. I think a lot of the organizations try to say that we need less than we actually do. I think we do actually probably need more exercise. And this doesn't necessarily mean we need to do vigorous exercise like CrossFit every day, but it's just getting your body active. And that exercise can look like a 10, 15, 20-minute walk some days a week, a few days a week. And getting the heart rate up a little bit higher. So running or doing a HIIT workout 1 or 2 days a week, doing a strength workout at least twice a week. I think all these things are important for our bodies and our minds. So that's my quick tips to try to have a healthy, fulfilled life. I hope you guys found this one useful. I wanted to address it. It was something that was on my mind the past few days, and this study came out, and I thought it was a perfect time to talk about it. I hope you guys find it useful. Again, if you guys have any questions, comments, please drop them below. Let's link. Send me some messages. If you have more topics you want me to discuss, send me a message on those as well, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.